Good morning, everybody. So this will be chapter 5 of Little Brother by Cory Doctorow. You remember in the last chapter, Marcus has a terrible time. He's tortured and questioned by the people. They give him a rough time. And he finally, well, all that he can do is to give up and sign whatever they give him to sign. And he ends up getting out. And so the rest of the book, you'll be happy to know, is Marcus getting his revenge on the thugs that ignored his constitutional rights and imprisoned him wrongly. The last thing that happens in the last chapter is he gets out. He can barely believe it. He looks around and uh, he thinks, are they going to just trick me and grab me? So the last thing that happens is two arms wrap around him. He starts almost crying. So we'll see what happens. But it was Van, his friend Vanessa Park, right? And she was crying, hugging me so hard I couldn't breathe. I didn't care. I hugged her back, my face buried in her hair. You're okay, she said. I'm okay, I managed. She finally let go of me, and another set of arms wrapped themselves around me. It was Holu. They were both there. He whimpered, "You're safe, bro," in my ear and hugged me even tighter than Vanessa had. When he let go, I looked around. Where's Daryl? I asked. They both looked at each other. Maybe he's still in the truck. We turned and looked at the truck at the alley's end. It was a nondescript white 18-wheeler. Someone had already brought the little folding staircase inside. The rear lights glowed red, and the truck rolled backwards toward us, emitting a steady beep, beep, beep. You probably remember what kind of figurative language that is, right, when a word takes the place of sound. Wait! I shouted as it accelerated toward us. Wait! What about Daryl? The truck drew closer. I kept shouting, What about Daryl? Holu and Vanessa each had me by an arm and were dragging me away. I struggled against them, shouting. The truck pulled out of the alley's mouth and reversed into the street and pointed itself downhill and drove away. I drove to run after it, but Val and Holu wouldn't let me go. I sat down on the sidewalk and put my arms around my knees and cried. I cried and cried and cried, loud sobs of the sort I hadn't done since I was a little kid. They wouldn't stop coming. I wouldn't stop shaking. Vanessa and Holu got me to my feet and moved me a little ways up the street. There was a Muni bus stop. Muni is the name of the bus in San Francisco, with a bench, and they sat me on it. They were both crying too, and we held each other for a while, and I knew we were crying for Daryl, who none of us ever expected to see again. We were north of Chinatown, at the part where it starts to become North Beach, a neighborhood with a bunch of neon strip clubs and the legendary City Lights counterculture bookstore, where the Beat poetry movement had been founded back in the 1950s. I knew this part of town well. My parents' favorite Italian restaurant was here, and they liked to take me here for big plates of linguine, and huge Italian ice cream, mountains with candied figs, and lethal little espressos afterward. Now it was a different place, a place where I was tasting freedom for the first time in what seemed like an eternity. We checked our pockets and found enough money to get a table at one of the Italian restaurants, out on the sidewalk, under an awning. The pretty waitress lighted a gas heater with the barbecue lighter, took our orders, and went inside. The sensation of giving orders, of controlling my destiny, was the most amazing thing I'd ever felt. How long were we in there? I asked. 6 days, Vanessa said. I got 5, Lulu said. I didn't count. What did they do to you? Vanessa said. I didn't want to talk about it, but they were both looking at me. Once I started, I couldn't stop. I told them everything, even when I'd been forced to, well, he wasn't able to go to the bathroom, right? So you know what happened. And they took it all in silently. I paused when the waitress delivered our sodas, and waited until she got out of earshot, then finished. In the telling, it receded into the distance. By the end of it, I couldn't tell if I was embroidering the truth or if I was making it all seem less bad. My memories swam like little fish that I snatched at, and sometimes they wriggled out of my grasp. Have you ever had that happen? You tell a story and you're not sure whether it's all true or not, especially something dramatic that happens. Holu shook his head. They were hard on you, dude, he said. He told us about his stay there. They questioned him, mostly about me, and he kept on telling them the truth, sticking to a plain telling of the facts about the day and about our friendship. They had gotten him to repeat it over and over again, but they hadn't played games with his head the way they had with me. He'd eaten his meals in a mess hall with a bunch of other people. He'd been given time in a TV room where they were shown last year's blockbuster movies on video. Vanessa's story was only slightly different. After she'd gotten them angry by talking to me, they'd taken away her clothes and made her wear a set of orange prison overalls. She'd been left in her cell for 2 days without contact, although she had been fed regularly. But mostly it was the same as with Hulu, the same questions repeated. They really hated you, Hulu said. Really had it in for you. Why? I couldn't imagine why. And then I remembered. You can cooperate, or you can be very, very sorry, said the lady. It was because I wouldn't unlock my phone for them that first night. That's why they singled me out. I couldn't believe it, but there was no other explanation. It had been sheer vindictiveness. My mind reeled at the thought. They had done all that as a mere punishment for defying their authority. I had been scared. Now I was angry. Those turkeys, I said. He uses a word stronger than turkeys, that I'm not comfortable using with you. Those turkeys, they did it to get back at me for mouthing off. Holu swore, and then Vanessa cut loose in Korean, something she only did when she was really, really angry. I'm going to get them, I whispered, staring at my soda. I'm going to get them. Holu shook his head. You can't, you know. You can't fight back against that. I doubt if you can fight back against it. Some of you who know Korean might know what it sounds like when someone talks angrily in Korean. I have not heard that in a while, not since I was in San Francisco. None of us much wanted to talk about revenge then. Instead, we talked about what we would do next. We had to go home. Our phones' batteries were dead, and it had been years since this neighborhood had any payphones. We just needed to go home. I even thought about taking a taxi, but there wasn't enough money between us to make that possible. So we walked. On the corner, we pumped some quarters into a San Francisco Chronicle newspaper box and stopped to read the front section. It had been 5 days since the bombs went off, but it was still all over the front page. Severe Haircut Woman had talked about the bridge blowing up, and I just assumed she was talking about the Golden Gate, but I was wrong. The terrorists had blown up the Bay Bridge. And I don't know if you know about the Bay Bridge in San Francisco. It's much bigger and more important than the Golden Gate Bridge. It's a huge bridge. It goes across the San Francisco Bay. That's why they call that, from San Francisco to Oakland. It's a double-decker bridge, too. So there's one bridge that goes this way, and then over it, 20 feet or something, there's another bridge stacked on top of it that goes this way. In 1989, there was a huge earthquake, and what happened is a section of that bridge went up just like that, and it killed a bunch of people. So the Bay Bridge being destroyed is something that every San Franciscan, they realize that it's possible. Why would they blow up the Bay Bridge? I said. The Golden Gate is the one on all the postcards. Even if you've never been to San Francisco, chances are you know what the Golden Gate looks like. It's that big orange suspension bridge that swoops dramatically from the old military base called the Presidio to Sausalito, where all the cutesy wine country towns are, with their scented candle shops and art galleries. It's as picturesque as heck, and it's practically the symbol for the state of California. If you go to the Disneyland California Adventure Park, there's a replica of the Golden Gate Bridge just past the gates, with a monorail running over it. So naturally, I assumed that if you were going to blow up a bridge in San Francisco, that's the one you'd blow. They probably got scared off by all the cameras and stuff, Hulu said. The National Guard's always checking cars at both ends, and there's all those suicide fences and junk along it. People have been jumping off the Golden Gate since it opened in 1937. They stopped counting after the 1,000th suicide in 1995. Yeah, Vanessa said. Plus, the Bay Bridge actually goes somewhere. The Bay Bridge goes from downtown San Francisco to Oakland, and thence to Berkeley, the East Bay townships that are home to many of the people who live and work in town. It's too expensive for most people to live in San Francisco. It's one of the only parts of the Bay Area where a normal person can afford a house big enough to really stretch out in. And there's also the university and a bunch of light industry over there. The BART goes under the bay and connects to two cities too, but it's the Bay Bridge that sees the most traffic. The Golden Gate was a nice bridge if you were a tourist or a rich retiree living out in wine country, but it was mostly ornamental. It's mostly for show. The Bay Bridge is, or was, San Francisco's workhorse bridge. I thought about it for a minute. You guys are right, I said, but I don't think that's all of it. We keep acting like terrorists attack landmarks because they hate landmarks. Terrorists don't hate landmarks or bridges or airplanes. They just want to screw stuff up and make people scared. To make terror. That's why they're called that, right? So, of course, they went after the Bay Bridge after the Golden Gate got all those cameras, after airplanes got all metal detectors and x-rayed. I thought about it some more, staring blankly at the cars rolling down the street, as the people walking down the sidewalks of the city all around me. Terrorists don't hate airplanes or bridges. They love terror. It was so obvious I couldn't believe I'd never thought of it before. I guess that being treated like a terrorist for a few days was enough to clarify my thinking. The other two were staring at me. I'm right, aren't I? All this crap, all the x-rays and ID checks, they're all useless, aren't they? They nodded slowly. Worse than useless, I said, my voice going up and cracking, because they ended up with us in prison, with Daryl. I hadn't thought of Daryl since we sat down, and now it came back to me. My friend, missing, disappeared. I stopped talking and ground my jaws together. We have to tell our parents, Olu said. We should get a lawyer, Vanessa said. I thought of telling my story, telling the world what had become of me, of the videos that would no doubt come out, of me weeping, reduced to a groveling animal. We can't tell them anything, I said. What do you mean? Van said. We can't tell them anything. You heard her. If we talk, they'll come back for us. They'll do to us what they did to Daryl. You're joking, Hulu said. You want us to... I want us to fight back, I said. I want us to stay free so that I can do that. If we go out there and blab, they'll just say that we're kids making it up. We don't even know where we were held. No one will know us. No one will believe us. Then one day, they'll come for us. I'm telling my parents that I was in one of those camps on the other side of the bay. I came over to meet you guys there, and we got stranded, and just got loose today. They said in the papers that people were still wandering home from them. I can't do that, Vanessa said. After what they did to you, how can you even think of doing that? It happened to me, that's the point. This is me and them now. I'll beat them. I'll get Daryl. I'm not going to take this lying down. But once our parents are involved, that's it for us. No one will believe us, and no one will care. If we do it my way, people will care. What's your way? Hulu said. What's your plan? I don't know yet, I admitted. Give me until tomorrow morning. Give me at least until then. I knew that once they'd kept it a secret for a day, it would have to be a secret forever. Our parents would be even more skeptical if we suddenly remembered that we'd been held in a secret prison instead of taken care of in a refugee camp. Van and Holo looked at each other. I'm just asking you for a chance, I said. We'll work out the story on the way, get it straight. Give me one day. Just one day. The other two nodded grimly, and we set off downhill again, heading back toward home. I lived on Potrero Hill, Vanessa lived in the North Mission, and Hulu lived in Noe Valley, three wildly different neighborhoods just a few minutes walk from each other. We turned onto Market Street and stopped dead. The street was barricaded at every corner, the cross streets reduced to a single lane, and parked down the whole length of Market Street were big, nondescript 18-wheelers, like the one that had carried us, hooded, away from the ship's docks into Chinatown. Continued in part 2.